Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. It is, of course, time for our Euro 2024 previews. This time, we'll be talking about our first Italian coach in the series, and we're joined by Aaron to talk all things Hungary. Aaron, how are we doing, man? You good?
Hello. Yes, I'm good. Thank you very much for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. Are you excited for the tournament now? Are you getting pumped up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can tell everybody is starting to feel the buzz around it. The team just had the official photographs, taking a picture of
Nice.
them, and everybody. I've seen a lot of fans just posting the pictures of the players, and well, Marco Rossi, of course.
Of course. Well, Marco Rossi is the man in charge, Italian coach who's been in charge for a good while now. Got some big landmark results with the national team, including a win over England, as my memory, if my memory serves me correctly. Two wins over England,
Two wins, yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
I tried to forget them, obviously. But for our listeners and viewers who might not be familiar with him, what is his kind of philosophy and how is he perceived within Hungary?
Well, if you don't mind, I wanna tell the story of how he got to Hungary because I think it's really unique. I don't know how much you know or remember him as a player. He was a defender while he was playing in the 80s and 90s, and then became a coach. And he had his success. Like he won the Coppa Italia as a player, and then moved to look at some smaller teams as a coach, but he did not have a lot of success as a football coach for a while. And he did not have a job in 2012. Should I remove him? Because
No,
I
don't
feel like
worry,
it's
it's fine. We can
okay.
keep
Okay, yeah,
going.
sure. Sorry about that. So he did not have a job in 2012, but he had a friend in Budapest who owned an Italian restaurant. So
Okay.
using the free time that he had, he visited his friend in Budapest, and he just so happened to know the owner of Budapest Honvéd, the team
Okay.
of Puskás. One thing led to another. They got introduced, and they started talking. And the owner ended up uh, acquiring his services. So originally, he became the coach of Budapest Honvéd, uh, and he was all right there. Uh, he had 2 or 3 years there, and then a hiatus, and then he was again signed, and he won the league with Honvéd,
Wow.
which was a huge task because at the time it was 2017. At the time, Ferencváros already started to develop to the thing, the monster that is now,
Yeah.
uh, one of a kind. But also, Videoton at the time was decent. They had European football as well. So, with a significantly smaller budget, he managed to win the league, which was
Wow.
huge. Like, I don't want to compare it to the Leicester City win
Mm-hmm.
because it's not that big of a task. But I don't know, like if West Ham won the league or
Oh,
something like that,
wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
big past, decent squad, but not really this sort of team that you would expect to win the league. Uh, so that's where we knew him. Then he moved to Slovakia, and then after a year, he became the national team's coach. And we did struggle to find a good enough coach because we had success with Pál Dárdai, who is managing, well, not anymore, but he was managing Hertha Hertha Berlin this
Yeah, yeah.
season. I'm sorry, it's a mess. It's Hungarian football. It's always going to be a
Yeah,
mess.
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but basically, Dardai did a really good job, and that's because he had his experience elsewhere. In the German Bundesliga, a lot of great quality players and a bigger understanding of tactics and what football should be played as. But he also knew what's going on in Hungary, which is not at the level of these clubs. So he understood where these players came from, and that was a good enough starting point. And then we found it hard to actually find a coach who, when you have a decent enough national team, you have your moments, big things, and then a couple of awful, disappointing moments as well. You just can't find the balance. So we're actively looking for a man who could do that. And then when Rossi came in, he sort of had the same thing. Like he understood the Hungarian league, the Hungarian players, what are they made of, what to look out for. And obviously the players also respected him because he achieved such a big task with Honvéd that he had the the credibility to like, okay, I think he knows what he's doing. So that was a good enough measurement from both parties. So I think part of his success is that. The other thing is he immediately understood that, with Hungary, you can't play the sexy possession-based football or the gegenpressing or these sort of things, because quite frankly, the roster is not capable of doing it in a high enough quality. Because we have some nice players, sure, but when we're talking about the actual squad, which we will later talk about, of course, you will see how it's like it's not that difficult to pick your 26 men.
Okay.
Because you have about 35 people to choose from to begin with.
Okay. Right.
If we're talking about a good enough level or a good enough talents to bring to such a tournament. So that's something that you just have to accept. We can act like, oh yeah, we beat England, so we're this and that, but that doesn't change the fact that you could field like 5 English teams that would probably still be better than a Hungarian national team. We have our strengths, don't get me wrong, but it's just we like to think of ourselves as the because of Puskás and all those people in the past, we are the pioneers of football and we know how it should be played, and you have to score bajillions of goals and that's the way that you should do it. And then this guy just came in, like walked in the door and was like, all right guys, chill out, we know who we are, don't worry about it, let's just figure out a way that is working out for us, and then we'll take it step by step. And he also had his disappointments as well, because the first year was sort of it was spent with a lot of experiments, both with tactics and players, and he did have his disappointments in both. So you could see people, a couple of players disappearing, a couple of tactical tweaks not coming back, and all these sort of things. And it's very telling how he is talking to the media, because often he's like, how about you just trust me? Yeah, I understand, because he also made some big decisions at times. He said that he wouldn't bring people from the second division because that's just not good enough. And I don't know if you know Balázs Zsuzsák, who was he's quite a name, and he was aging already when he got the task, and it was a huge talking point. Should we bring him along? Should we just leave him be? And he took a stand, because Zsuzsák was coming back to his boyhood club, which was in the second division at the time. So by claiming that he will not bring anyone from the second division, it's also a statement of like, no Zsuzsák at all. And B, it's a motivation for them to come back. And if you come back, the door suddenly opens up. And they did. And it was always, no matter the year, it's always coming back. Because Zsuzsák is still active, by the way, still at his boys.
Still going.
Not bad of a player. I still believe if he was to be in the squad, which is not, he had his proper farewell party match. But if he came back, like an impact sub at best for me, that's just my take on him. Like, sure, he has good technique, but he can't do the same things that he did in his prime, in my opinion.
Well, time waits for nobody, right? I think it catches up. It catches up with everyone. But that's fantastic to hear about. Like, the story behind Marco Rossi is so fascinating. It is kind of just random that he appeared at the Hungary national team. But let's talk about the squad, and let's talk about the players to look out for. Now, we know players like Szoboszlai. We know Gulac. I hope my pronunciation's okay. I spent some time in Hungary, and I know the language is crazy.
It's
so I hope my
difficult.
pronunciation's okay. But we know the players that play in the Premier League. We know the goalkeeper. Who are the players that you think could surprise people and could have a breakout tournament?
Right. So Rossi has this system where he has 3 center backs that will be very important. I actually don't know exactly how he will field them, because usually it's Long, who is from Cyprus, he plays in Cyprus. Willi Orban from Leipzig. And then it used to be Attila Salai, who had a great couple of seasons at Fenerbahce. But ever since he moved to the Bundesliga, he is struggling. He is a left-footed center back, so that's always an extra. And he was still doing all right, but the last couple of times we could see that his form dipped a little bit. And the half of the reason I brought the Pal Dardai into the conversation is because his sons are in the age of consideration now, and they were born in Germany, and they went through the German under this and that squads. So it's always a question of like, okay, which teams they will represent in the end. And one of his sons, Marton, made the decision recently to be part of the Hungarian squad. He had 2 games already. He's also a left-footed center back.
Nice.
So it's going to be an interesting decision, because Attila was also an important, pivotal part of this team. But probably Darda is more in the game. He has a different attributes to his game. It's 2 different players, in my opinion. One of them spent a lot of times with this team. The other one can just bring something new to it. So which one he will choose, I don't actually know. So those 2 could have an important role in one way or another. Since we are in this podcast, I have to mention Balog from Parma,
of course,
who's a young player, very talented. I really like the way he plays, because he often shifts into this right back position when we have the ball. So it's an interesting tactical thing to see that the 3 center back becomes 2, and then he moves a little bit to the right, and that pushes the other players on the right forward. So that could be something that you can see. There's also Callum Styles, who is also a very interesting name on the list.
This name did jump out at me when I looked at the roster, I'll be honest.
Yeah, apparently his grandparents are Hungarian, and he became available, and then they started to talk with Rossi, and he's not a world-class player, but for us, he was a very good team player, because you can employ him as a wing back, and he can also play in midfield. And he has spent a lot of time in the English pyramid. So, a very different background, a very different way of playing the game. So he could be an interesting cog in the system. There's Adam Nagy. I love Nagy. I think he's a very intelligent midfielder. He plays in Serie B, which is he often has been criticized for not being ambitious enough, because I do believe he could play in a top league, but somehow he's all right with whatever. I guess he's a very chill guy. I really like him as a person, and if you see him play, he's also very fun to watch, in my opinion. You asked me not to mention the top leagues in general, so just a notable mention: Milos Kerkez on the left. He's so fun to watch.
I've loved him at Bournemouth this year. I really like him at Bournemouth.
It's just a burst of energy. But the last guy I want to mention is Barnabas Varga, because he's also an interesting character in terms of we need a striker, because Adam Salai retired recently, and it wasn't an obvious choice. But this guy, it's such an. I'm gonna keep it brief, okay? I promise you. He went to Austria, spent there 10 years of his career, and then came back to the Hungarian second division, won promotion, stayed at the team. They became dead last, but he still managed to do all right. Moved to a top division team, became top scorer of the first division. Then moved to Ferencváros, where he also became top scorer this season. It's just bunkers. He came out of nowhere for Hungarians too, because nobody remembered this young guy who went to Austria at, I don't even remember, like 17 years of age or something like that, and then never heard again. Came back and he's been brilliant. He's a very like physical striker. He's not the dribbling machine you picture strikers often, but he's a very good aerial presence. His pressing is very important to the team oftentimes. Very energetic. He's a tick sometimes. It just doesn't seem to be like, get off of me. You can see the people get frustrated of him because he has a lot of energy to do this, and we really needed this guy, and he fitted perfectly from day one. So he could potentially be, someone that maybe is not known as much, and so he can surprise. Perhaps, I'm sure the teams will watch a lot of videotape of him, so there's going to be a lot of footage by now. But if you just sit down and watch a couple of games at the Euros, you're gonna be like, who the hell is this guy? I've never heard of him. Why did he score 2 times? This is not making sense.
I absolutely love it. Well, I'm excited to watch him now. Now, obviously, you are in a fairly tough group: Germany, Scotland, and Switzerland. So this takes us to our final question: how far will Hungary go? Now, as you said, there's been some big results under Marco Rossi. There's been some consistent, decent performances in the Nations League, in qualification, of course. What do people expect within Hungary? And so what would be a successful tournament?
We aim to, come out of the group and continue the tournament. I think if we're being realistic, that should be the goal. Everything else is an extra. And Marco Rossi has said something like that. He was more cautious with the wording, but more or less that was the idea. But I think it's right. I've had a couple of conversations by now, and it's usually what I like to mention is that teams are very close in terms of quality in this group, which could result in a lot of draws, which would potentially mean that third spot will not do it. Because you need, at least 3-4 points to go from the group to the best 16. And so you have to be cautious to not get caught off guard, but you also have to take some risks to at least win one game in order to make sure that you have a decent shot. So I'm very cautious about it because I think the teams are very close to each other. I don't want to say anything like, oh yeah, we have good recent history with Germany, no problem. Scotland, Switzerland, we're gonna be fine. But if you ask the fans, they have some wild expectations. Like, I'm actually curious what would happen. I hope not, but I'm curious what would happen if we didn't make it through the groups. Because I think a lot of people would be genuinely upset about it. They love. We talked about Marco Rossi. Imagine a foreigner coach that is being chanted in matches. So half of the stadium says Marco, the other half says Rossi. So that's the level of endorsement we're talking about. But people would be really upset, I think. Well, most of them, if we didn't make it through the groups, which is, I believe, is a tough but doable task, especially since last tournament we were in the group of death and we almost made it with France, Portugal, Germany. So we have decent past. We have now Soboslai, who was not available at the last tournament because he was injured, so he's going to be super motivated. I'm absolutely sure that he will do everything in his power. We have an all right chance to do something fun, I would say. If we won one game after the group phase, that would be historic and huge. So if we manage to do that, I think everybody would agree that this was awesome. What a tournament. Can't wait for the World Cup square qualifiers to start. Realistically speaking, I think best 16 is a good measurement of like, okay, let's go for that. And then from then on, whatever happens. There's no pressure, just enjoy the ride, see what happens.
Love it. Wow, absolutely perfect. I'm excited to see Hungary. When I have watched them play, I've enjoyed watching. I've enjoyed, I think just the energy and the grit and the determination. It's always great to see. Well, Aaron, thank you for joining us. This has been fantastic. When our viewers and listeners want to find you, where can they find you online?
I'm mostly active on Twitter, or X as they call it now, but we all know it's Twitter. It's A11 Aaron. That's my handle, so feel free to reach out. I'm happy to give information about Hungarian football whenever I can.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll be in touch for you to come on during the tournament as well to talk all things Hungary. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.